Outgoing US President Joe Biden has spared his son Hunter a possible prison term by granting him a full and unconditional pardon for his federal convictions for tax and firearms offences. Despite heavy criticism, the president said his son's case was so politicized, he had no choice.
U.S. President Joe Biden leaves for an overseas trip just hours after announcing he's pardoned his son, Hunter. Biden had previously said he would not interfere with the judicial process, but on Sunday, he went back on his word. In a statement, Biden said his son was being unfairly prosecuted, calling his conviction a miscarriage of justice. The president accused his opponents in Congress of politicizing the case. Hunter's legal troubles started in 2018 when authorities began a federal tax probe on his overseas business deals. Then in 2023, Hunter was charged with lying about his drug use on a firearms application. Still, he accused the Republicans of unfairly targeting him and his father.
For 6 years, I've been the target of the unrelenting Trump attack machine, shouting, "Where's Hunter?" Well, here's my answer. I am here. There is no fairness or decency in what these Republicans are doing. They have lied over and over about every aspect of my personal and professional life. So much so that their lies have become the false facts believed by too many people.
Hunter faced decades in prison after pleading guilty to tax charges and being convicted in the firearms case. Sentencing was scheduled for mid-December, but the presidential pardon gives him a clean slate. Biden's U-turn is being met with criticism. On social media, President-elect Donald Trump asked if the pardon applies to those convicted in the January 6 riots and said it was a miscarriage of justice, even though Trump himself had pardoned several of his allies while in office. While it is common for outgoing presidents to issue pardons at the end of their term, critics warn this one sets a bad precedent.
Let's get more from our correspondent Janelle Dumalaon in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Janelle. So why did President Biden go back on his word?
Well, Phil, we can't really look into Joe Biden's mind, but a reasonable explanation could be that he just does not have that much to lose. His political career is drawing to a close. The Democrats lost control of the presidency in both chambers of the House. As such, there aren't really Democrats in high positions that would have to experience the negative blowbacks of this decision. So Joe Biden has not much to pay in terms of a political price, but one could argue that he has everything to gain personally. Hunter Biden, of course, being his last living son. Now, as you pointed out, he has been criticized roundly for this decision. He's been accused of putting family over country, rather. He's been accused of hypocrisy because of just how much he slammed Donald Trump and his allies for their supposed abuses of power. But one can only assume that these are criticisms that Joe Biden must have priced in when he made this decision.
So does this now set the stage for President-elect Trump to pardon himself and his allies when he takes office in January?
You know, Donald Trump could pardon himself, but it is unlikely that he will even have to. We've seen the last of Special Counsel Jack Smith's criminal cases against Trump being dismissed a few months ago. We also saw the Supreme Court say that former presidents cannot be prosecuted for, quote, official acts conducted while in office. Since then, everything seems to have gone Trump's way in terms of his legal cases. Now, in terms of pardoning his allies, when this decision from Joe Biden came out yesterday, Trump immediately reacted, saying that the January 6 rioters should be pardoned as well. Now, we're talking, of course, about around more than 1,500 rioters who have been charged, more than 600 who have been sentenced. And he has talked about pardoning some of them before, and the fact that he's bringing it up again means that he really is looking to pardon at least some of these January 6 rioters if he's going to keep telegraphing it in this way.
And so what will this do to President Biden's legacy?
think Americans are able to relate with a father protecting his son, but then again, most Americans aren't part of the most powerful family in the country. And there really are a few things here that could be very damaging for Joe Biden's legacy. There's the U-turns, there's the U-turning, there's just how wide of a scope this pardon has. So Hunter Biden is basically immune from further federal prosecution for any of his conduct in the period under which he was being investigated. But I think the hardest thing that Joe Biden will have to live down is that he let his son escape accountability at a time where trust in institutions as independent, as non-politicized, is waning. And he will have to square that with the legacy that he wanted to have as a rules-following institutionalist.
Okay, thank you for that, Janelle. Janelle Dumalaon in Washington. Nick Akerman is a former assistant U.S. attorney in New York and a former Watergate prosecutor. Welcome to DW. Would it be wrong to characterize Joe Biden's action in pardoning Hunter Biden as powerful old man does his wayward son a massive favor?
Well, no question he did his son a massive favor. But keep in mind, I think one of the things that Joe Biden did not say in providing this pardon was that he was concerned about what would happen to his son once Donald Trump came into office. Part of the problem here is if Donald Trump had not been elected this time, I don't think Joe Biden would have ever pardoned his son. What he's concerned about is that if Hunter Biden has to spend some time in jail, that the people in the Trump administration, either Donald Trump or others around him, could basically take retribution against him by putting him in solitary confinement, making life miserable for him in prison. And I think that is what motivated Joe Biden to do what he did here.
So is this unconditional presidential pardon, does that mean that Hunter Biden will now be immune from President Trump when he gets into power? Does that sort of cover all bases for now and forever?
That's absolutely right. It covers everything. It goes way back. It covers anything that would be in the statute of limitations. And so he is free and clear at this point, free and clear of the two charges for which he was convicted, the gun charge and the tax charge. So, yes, it wipes all of those clean.
But this is a bad look, which we can see is splitting the Democratic Party. Many Americans suffer injustice on a daily basis. Many Americans fear what might happen in the future. Many Americans don't have a president as their dad.
Well, I think that's right. It's not a great look. It's not something I'm sure Joe Biden wanted to do. But under the circumstances, I think he felt that he was putting his son in harm's way that was above and beyond what one would expect in the criminal justice system.
Can I just interrupt you there? Just on that point, forgive me for interrupting, but putting his son in harm's way, didn't his son put himself in harm's way when he broke the law?
Of course, and he should have gone to jail for what he did. No question about it. Certainly on the gun charge, he probably wouldn't have gotten jail time, but I think on the tax charge, he would have gotten jail time. When I say by harm's way, I'm talking about additional harm that would have been inflicted upon him if Donald Trump or any of his minions decided to take retribution against Hunter Biden or to do other things with Hunter Biden that were not justified. Donald Trump has made it very clear that he's going to be using his Justice Department to basically bring retribution on anybody who he thinks has gotten in his way in the past. He's appointed an attorney general who is politically motivated, who once dropped a case when she was AG in Florida into Trump University in return for a $25,000 campaign contribution. He's got his two criminal defense lawyers will be ensconced in the Justice Department. And now he's appointed this Mr. Patel to be the director of the FBI. So I think that the situation is completely different now that he is not going to be in a regular criminal justice system. Keep in mind, Donald Trump wound up using this pardon power to basically protect himself while he was in office. He pardoned his campaign manager, Paul Manafort, got him out, basically told him if he hung tight and didn't cooperate, he'd be pardoned. He pardoned Roger Stone, who was also his political advisor, who was convicted of covering up for Donald Trump. And on top of it all, Donald Trump pardoned his son-in-law's father, who he's now appointed to be ambassador to France.
OK, so what you're saying is that these two presidents, present and a former and soon to be again, they're as bad as each other. When Trump pardons and frees the January 6th insurrectionists, no one will have anything to say looking at what the president is now doing.
Well, I don't think that's right. I mean, it's a matter of degree. You can't put them in an equal category. Certainly, the January 6th defendants should not be pardoned. They did terrible things. They've been convicted of serious crimes, I mean, as well as Hunter Biden. I think what the concern here is, and again, I emphasized, and unfortunately, the president didn't emphasize this in his statement, was that by leaving Hunter Biden in the criminal justice system after he leaves office with Donald Trump, who has said that he's going to use the criminal justice system, the Department of Justice, to basically take retribution against all of his enemies. He said one of those is Joe Biden and another is Hunter Biden. And I think the concern is that Hunter Biden is going to be singled out and be put in a worse position if he has to continue in the criminal justice system through Donald Trump.
Do you see this decision by President Biden as having consequences beyond his term?
Well, consequences to the extent that you hit on before. Clearly, this is not great in the sense that it's going to give Donald Trump, presumably, some cover when he does pardon the January 6th defendants and other people that he's pardoned, even though there is not really, it's a false equivalency between the two. I mean, first of all, if you take the the charge on the gun charge, no one is ever charged alone for that gun charge for 11 days. And it's very rare that anybody's charged with tax violations when they've been on drugs and on top of it all, they paid everything back. So, I mean, he hasn't really been handled the same way that any other citizen would have been handled in the criminal justice system.
Okay.
But be that as it may, I think if everything had been equal and Donald Trump had not won re-election, President Biden would never have pardoned his son.
Tell us about the nature of these presidential pardons in general. To non-American ears, it seems like a weird tradition that as I'm going out the door, I can just turn around and say to you, and you, wipe the slate clean, doesn't matter what you did, off you go. That just seems like a weird rule.
Well, it's a rule. It's a rule in our Constitution, a U.S. Constitution from way back when, 1777, that's been in the Constitution. It's a power that the president has. A lot of state governors in this country have it. I think it somewhere comes back from the English system with the king having the ability to pardon people. And it's a pretty all-encompassing power. There is really no way to get around it. The only way it could ever be reformed is if you amended the U.S. Constitution.
Good talking to you, Nick. Thank you so much for talking us through that so clearly. Nick Akerman, former assistant U.S. attorney, former Watergate prosecutor. Thank you.
Thank you.